The way I built my portfolio, leveraging other people's money, leveraging terms of equity on people that are motivated to sell, was the way I built my wealth. In this case, I had these doctors who said, I got the private capital. Someone took from their retirement account, someone took from their taxable accounts and said, David, you find the right deals and we can put our money together. And so I did. I found it and negotiated the deal on it. I joined venture partner and we created both equity and debt deals. So what am I doing? I'm leveraging. Now, can you do that right now in the marketplace? No, not right now. See, you have to know where you are in the market cycle and where to put your money. So we move money today into debt instruments where we are lending money more than we are buying equities. We'll have that opportunity come again. That's why I tell people in Freedom Founders, I said, just be patient because the opportunity to ride the equity curve back up again is coming. I see all these young people who are just jumping in at the absolute wrong time. They're just making a big mistake. Why? They just don't know any better. They just don't know anything different. They can't compare and contrast because they haven't lived long enough through a market cycle. So this is the key to understanding how to move and navigate your investment capital through different markets. But you've got to be willing to jump in somewhere and buy your way into constructs that people can provide you the curated investments. Hi, David here, CEO and founder of the Freedom Founders Mastermind community. I often get asked the question by friends, people in our community, people outside the community, well, David, why did you start Freedom Founders? What was the nexus, the catalyst for Freedom Founders? And I tell them, it was never on my plate, never a part of my vision, which I think was instrumental to looking at life in general. Is if we stay in the same pathway that we've been on all of our life, whatever that construct was, going back to when we went to school for our training, for many of us it was in our practices. If we don't see that there's a way to, I don't mean to get out of whatever we've learned to do, but I mean just to be able to evolve, change the methodology, change the pattern, go into a different phase of life, that the burnout comes out. Now for me, it wasn't burnout. If you know my story, my daughter Jenna went through a lot of major health crises at an early age. At age 2.5, diagnosed with high-risk leukemia. 3 hard years of getting through that, and subsequently following that, she had really just breakthrough epileptic seizures twice a week that just floored her, just took her down. This is age 8 to 12, right? So in her developing years, it was really hard. And then at age 12, because of all the chemotherapy and the seizure medication, she's in end-stage liver failure. Yeah, her liver's gone, and she had to have a life-saving liver transplant. Now, I'll just give you the end game. She made it. She made it through all that. She's a little over 31 years old today, and really thriving and catching up on life. She's very resilient, and I'm just blessed to still be able to be her dad. But it was during those times that I had that wake-up call that I talk about, is the fact that I'm working hard, doing the things that all of us do, taking my skills, the training, all the effort I put into being a dentist, and making the most of that, because that's what we want to do. That's what's in our DNA. And for me, I thought, I'm gonna have the Ozzie and Harriet, family, probably 3 kids, and it's all gonna be good, and we'll live in the burbs, and I'll have my dental practice. And well, it wasn't quite to be for me, and probably for you, some of the things that you thought would happen may not be either. That's not, in my estimation, a thing to look at and say, well, gee, what happened? Life's not fair. I've learned through that, and maybe there's times when I was really down, and I felt that way. That life is not fair. Why is this happening to me? There's other things that happened. Well, our marriage to her mother didn't make it through, just barely past the time she survived leukemia. I mean, there was just so much intensity, emotional, physical. We were just drawn out, and just you don't even see it happening because you don't even know. I've never been there before and had no training in any of this, right? Nobody's fault. And then after that, when she was 12 and going through the liver transplant, I decided I can't keep doing this. I'm stretched so thin. Jen doesn't live with me anymore. She lives with her mom, so I get to see her on weekends, and I can't really be a real dad. And then she's sick again, and she's going through this life-saving liver transplant. And am I going to have any more chances? And I just finally decided that I got to break the chains from this, even though dentistry is a great profession and it provides for a great lifestyle. Unfortunately, I had built up over many years, going back to when I was a student in dental school, the real estate portfolio. Nothing fancy, nothing fast, no home runs, just the discipline and compound effect of learning a model and investing in an asset that I could have control over. And that built up enough by my back-of-the-napkin measurement to allow me to escape the chair, to sell the practice. Now, I didn't think I'd escape it forever, meaning I just wanted to buy back some time then. And I had the assets to buy back time. Isn't that what investing is really supposed to be about? To eventually buy us back time? Well, why do we have to wait till we're in retirement age, in our 60s, to have that time? Why? Because it's a construct that's set up by society. It's set up by Wall Street. I mean, your IRAs, your tax-deferred 401k plans, you can't touch them till 59 and a half without a penalty. Why? Well, they're saying, well, you don't need it till then because you're supposed to keep working the same way and you don't need it. See, it's all just propaganda. And if you start to think in life and test more of the paradigms that have been set before us, and you start to realize that a lot of it's myths and misinformation, and yet we buy into it. So my daughter forced me not to buy into that. And I didn't buy into it early on in life. I didn't buy the whole life insurance policies. I didn't put money in 401ks. I started buying real estate. So that was my number one thing that I did right. And then secondly, I could take my foot off the pedal and escape the chair when Jenna was sick and recovering. I just didn't want to lose any more opportunities. Now, as it happened, and now I'm getting to the question that I posed at the front end, why and how did Freedom Founders originate? I leave the practice. I sell it. Well, I sold it twice. That's another story for another day, but I had to sell it twice. I bombed the first time. I carried financing it, had to take it back. But again, I learned a lot of lessons through that, and a lot of lessons I teach my Freedom Founders members today about their business exits and how to elevate their business. But again, let's put that on another podcast. Learning lessons through adversity is probably a key lesson in life. With the expanded time margin that I created by not having the obligation to go to a dental office and produce the high income that I could produce, and just saying, hey, I've got enough right now with the passive income that comes from these assets that I built up over time, paid off the debt. I leveraged heavily at first, paid a lot of that debt down over the years, snowballed it down. That's what we call snowballing down the debt. A lot of free and clear assets that were producing a nice monthly stipend, if you want to call it that, recurring sustainable income, so I call it. And that gave me the freedom to say, I can do this. Maybe for 18 months. We'll see. But I just wanted that time right now. I was just so motivated to do it. And I did it. And I never went back to dentistry, even though I could go back today. Well, I need to go back and take a little bit more CE to catch up, but I still got my license. I could go back today and do dentistry if I needed to, but I probably won't. That was a great life. And I love the fact that I was able to, because of my daughter's crises, I was able to turn the table and be a better father for her, which is number one, and then create a new freedom path for me. And so Freedom Founders evolved from people who asked me, once I sold the practice, well, David, I understand why you did it because of your daughter. That makes sense. But from a financial standpoint, could you really leave in your 40s? Buddy, don't you have to make some more money? Because, do you have some big retirement plan, or what's the plan here, right? They didn't know I did real estate. And that's why I started to let on to some people. I said, well, I've always been building up real estate. Well, then their eyes get big and it's like, well, could you tell me how to do this? Now, this is a handful of people. I'm not broadcasting this, in the newspaper or on the internet. No, this is just me telling a few people that know me and going, well, congratulations for selling your practice. Sounds cool. Wish I could do that. But seriously, how'd you do it, brother? And so I said, well, I started buying real estate when I was in my early 20s. Well, could you show me how you did that? I said, yeah, I could show you how to do it. I did that. But now I'm in my 40s. These are people in their 40s and 50s and some late 50s who I knew through my collegiate atmosphere in the medical and dental community. They're not going to want to go back and start how I did when I was even still single and with no family at all, right? So that's when I started, when I had more time than money. That's something I try to explain to a lot of people who think it's easy to go out and do this on your own. It's not. There's a time element. There's a time trade. And when you're young, you've got the time and the ability to go test things. That's what you should do when you're young. You should try things. You should experiment. But when you're down the road and you've got family obligations, in this case, my daughter had a lot of medical expenses, and you've got a house and a mortgage on a house, although I had mine paid off at that time, but still there's all these things that build up, and it's a little harder to have the margin to be creative and try some things, but I did it. And so I thought, well, how can I help these people without having them do what I did, because they're not going to want to do that. So I thought, well, what I have built up over these years, 20 some years of doing this, I said, I built up a network. I've got a network of resources where I know how to access deal flow. The key is deal flow. How do you find the right deals? Well, for me, it was about relationships. Who did I know in certain communities in North Texas? I knew attorneys that dealt with real estate, title companies. The people knew me there. Certainly bankers, CPAs, real estate, realtors, and management companies. I got to know the key people, the players, if you will, because I just put the time in as I was doing my own transactions. I met these people, and they start to know who I am. They know that I'm a young doc, and I'm buying properties, and oftentimes I could solve problems that they couldn't solve for some of their buyers. Not everybody, but I would make offers on deals where I could see the opportunity to solve a problem for somebody else, and I did it with creative finance. Again, that's a course I teach in Freedom Founders about how you can create wealth and do it using other people's money, but without going to the bank to getting loans. Now, I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but I promise you, it's very feasible because I did it. I did it over and over and over and over again without the banks. So today, people don't teach that because they say, well, you should just go to the bank because the bank will give you money because you're a doctor. And it's like, yeah, but that's the lazy way. That's also the dangerous way. I'll tell you, particularly in an environment like we're in today. But that's how Freedom Founders started. And so as I thought, how can I expand the deal flow without me going and being in the business of, property management or building out some new business? I didn't want another business at that point. The whole point of leaving dentistry is I wanted out of the business because I needed to spend more time with my daughter. So going back into another business was not on my table right then. So I thought, well, I know people. Back to the resources and relationships. I have the network. I brought my resources, who were people that could find properties, that had management teams, they had contractors, people I'd lent money to on many of their deals, and who were actually did some of the management on my properties. And I said, well, if I've got more private capital, because again, I'm not going to the banks to buy these properties. And this is now getting close to 2008 when the great financial crisis hit. And at that point, then assets went on sale. I mean, assets all across America. I don't care if it's businesses, the stock market, real estate, everything took the hit. And now's the time to go for it. But the problem is no one has any access to bank money, right? I've heard so many people in my circles say, boy, if I had been prepared for 2009, they didn't prepare because they got lazy and they used bank money. And when the bank money tightens up and goes away, and it's prime time to buy assets and you got no money, you're stuck. But private capital, the way I built my portfolio, leveraging other people's money, leveraging terms of equity on people that were motivated to sell, was the way I built my wealth. And so in this case, I had these doctors who said, we've got the private capital. Someone took it from their retirement accounts, someone took it from their taxable accounts and said, David, you find the right deals and we can put our money together. And so I did. One-off deals. I didn't do syndications. This is just one property. I found it and negotiated the deal on it and put my co-partner, if you will, a joint venture partner, and we created both equity and debt deals. Now there's a difference there, and I can explain that in another podcast or in some training, but both work, and it depends on where we are on the market, whereas one works better than the other. But put it this way, equity and debt deals, put them together as a JV, and this was passive for these docs, but it was also good for them because it was tangible property. They could go out and actually see the property. A lot of people that haven't done real estate before, it's like, I want to see the property. I need to understand this. And if you lived in a house, well, it's not really hard work to understand how a house works, right? And I just showed them the numbers and how I vetted deals and basically showed them everything I did, but I just did the work for them. And then we, split profits. I had very little money in these deals. So what am I doing? I'm leveraging. again, big time. But we were able to access probably a little over $5 million of property from about 2009 to 2013 or 14. And in that, both sides made great returns. I more than doubled my net worth during that period of time. And the docs, who are my private capital lenders, they made way into double-digit returns. Now, can you do that right now in the marketplace? No, not right now. See, the market cycles. You have to know where you are in the market cycle and where to put your money. So we move money today into debt instruments where we are lending money more than we are buying equities. But again, that's training for another time. We'll have that opportunity come again. That's why I tell people in Freedom Founders, I said, just be patient because the opportunity to ride the equity curve back up again is coming. I see all these young people who are with FOMO, fear of missing out, are just jumping in at the absolute wrong time. Absolute wrong time. They're buying at the retail prices based on thin margins of cash flow, if any, with interest rates that are high, along with the high prices of the properties, and they're just making a big mistake. Why? They just don't know any better. They just don't know anything different. They can't compare and contrast because they haven't lived long enough through a market cycle. So this is the key to understanding how to move and navigate your investment capital through different markets. But you've got to be willing to jump in somewhere and put the time in or buy your way into constructs that people can provide you the curated investments. Second reason Freedom Founders made a lot of sense for me was because I was really done being an active investor. I just didn't want to go do that anymore. So I'm thinking, well, these doctors don't want to be active investors, and really I don't either. So why don't I build something that serves both them, other doctors who are my colleagues and friends. I can use my knowledge and my resources, my network, to build something that all of us can benefit from, because I need the same thing. I want the leverage of a community that can then go to the marketplace and attract the highest and best operators. And the key today is best operators. There's a lot of people out there raising capital, that are average, if not well under average operators. They've only been able to cycle the money because the market's been kind to them up until now. Now they're getting, the headwinds are beating them down. As Warren Buffett often says, you find out who's been swimming naked when the tide goes out. Well, that's happening. So understanding who are the operators, and because we have the leverage of a community with a lot of capital, we get to pick and choose. We get to cherry pick. We cherry pick the best of the best. We don't have to just deal with what I call family and friends investing, where it's like, well, who do you know that has that deal today? I saw that in a forum the other day. Well, I'm looking for a cap rate preferred return of 10%, and I need to see a total IRR of 19%. I need to be in and out of the deal in 3 years. I'm going, that was yesterday. You're not going to find that in the market. If you're trying to find that, you're going to be sadly disappointed. It's not the place to play right now. Could that come back again? Certainly, it could. But you don't know how to read the tea leaves if you haven't been through the cycles, so you just think whatever's been in the past is going to continue to work, and it won't. It never does. It never does. We're in a marketplace right now where the multiples, the PE multiples, price earnings ratio in the stock market equities, we have multiples also in the real estate market where we have rent to value ratios, and they're off the charts on the valuations now, off the charts. Yet people keep buying both sides, stock market and real estate. Why? It's the euphoria of the marketplace. It's the madness of the crowds. It's going to be a big correction, and when it hits, it's going to take a lot of people down. But that wealth gets transferred to the people who are positioned to be able to take it. That's where I was after 2008 and 9. In that great position, I'm out of my practice. I've got private capital who's looking to me to let's go make some deals, and we did. Now I've got a big community where we run several $100 million of capital, into the various markets through top-rated operators that we do heavy reviews on, so we know what their financials look like. We know what we have, the legal structures pinned down by a securities attorney. We can look at all this and mitigate, never guarantee, but we can mitigate the risk factor and still get the best returns that the market will provide. Let me say that again, what the market will provide. See, too many people think I'm going to go get something from the market. No, the market is going to provide something today, but it's probably not what it provided 3 years ago. And that's what people get wrong. They think they can keep getting the same thing from the market, and the market has a mean and nasty side to it that says, back off, because you don't get that today. You've taken too much out of the previous market, and now it's time for you to learn a lesson. It's kind of like Mother Nature saying, you took advantage of me, and now I'm gonna teach you a lesson. You don't want to be in that place, particularly when you've worked so hard for your capital for so many years, and if you're at a point where you want to make that capital work for you, or you're at a point where you're ready to exit your practice and take that equity from the sale of that hard work that you put in to build the value, where are you going to put it now? What are you going to do with it? We got inflation on one side, we got recession on the other side, we got high interest rates here. What are you going to do? This is the thing that you've got to understand, that you can learn, you've got to learn. So Freedom Founders was a win-win for me. It let me go free of my practice. I've never gone back. I've remained totally free. I run my business from home. I travel when and where I want to. I can do everything without being chained to a schedule. Dentistry was great. It provided me the wherewithal to do two things at once: to be a business owner, serve patients, and also be an investor. I did two at once. It was easy to do when I started out early in life. Not something I would necessarily say would be a good thing to do if you're mid-career or a little bit older. As we get further along in life, we realize the value of our time. How much more valuable our time becomes for us as we get further down the road in life. Our mortality starts to creep up on us. We have friends or maybe family members whose health or decline is inevitable. Ours is inevitable at some point. And we can't buy back that time, not with all the money in the world. So why don't we use what we've got today and make that, I'm talking about the capital investments, make that work better, more efficiently today, so we can actually have some of that time today. Not talking about retirement, not stepping out completely. That may be you. And if that's you, then do it. Don't wait. But I see so many that get close to the point of selling a business or a practice, and that's the first time they really take a look and say, well, what am I going to have when it's left over? And it's this amount of money. It's like, well, I got $1 million, I got $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever it is, and they're going, well, is that going to be enough? And their financial advisor kind of says, well, as long as we don't have a downturn or correction in the market in your first 3 years of retirement, well, how likely is that right now? I'd say that the likelihood is pretty high. So again, you've got to take control of your money, your future, your assets. Because if you don't, nobody else will. And you're just going to be succumbing to the markets, which to me is like going to Vegas to gamble. Not where I would put my retirement accounts. Talk to you soon. If you enjoyed watching or learning from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you have a question about any of my content or this specific video, just please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay focused on your freedom. I'll see you next time.